Why is it that the more you correct them, the less they listen? Well, because the child isn't sure if you really love them. That's why we need to understand this process and find those 3 pillars that build a child's inner drive. Find them, and the child becomes accountable for themselves. They'll iterate, they'll push forward. Take, for instance, we've talked about Einstein, Elon Musk, Confucius, and many others, including Da Vinci. Did any of them become scientists by being forced into countless classes and becoming straight-A students? Nope. But when a kid has that inner spark, you can't suppress it. They'll keep exploring, keep seeking, keep picking up books on their own. That's the most crucial source of development and strength in a person's life. But today, we've got it all wrong. Teachers and parents are filled with anxiety. We wish kids were like cars, with a switch that could get them into college with one click. That would be too easy. But where does this kid want to go? They don't know. They don't have an internal GPS. They lack their own drive to grow. So, if we understand the difference between complex and simple systems, meaning we know the difference between a biological organism and a machine, then we understand that if disciplining a child feels like a Herculean task, leaving both you and the kid miserable, then clearly we're doing something wrong. We can't break a child down into different metrics and forcefully piece them together to create a genius student. Our approach should be, treat them like a person, ignite their inner drive, make them love themselves, love society, be curious, explore, and tackle setbacks on their own. Then you'll find you can just sit back and enjoy the ride. Manage yourself well. Smooth out your own inner turmoil. Become more cheerful, healthier, and you'll in turn positively influence your child's personality. And they'll grow. The good news, even if parents make plenty of mistakes in disciplining, think about your past conflicts with family, rebellious teenage years, arguments, and then coming back to the family after 30, things still not so bad with your folks. Why? Because humans have vitality, resilience. So even if you've influenced your child negatively before, they can still lead a beautiful life. That's where our confidence in their growth lies. So every parent who sincerely understands this book and is willing to live a relaxed, happy life, their child will thrive. Now let's talk specifics. What are the 3 pillars or the earliest lines of code in a person's growth process? These are my own conclusions drawn after reading numerous books. They might not be perfect, but I believe these 3 directions are pretty reliable. The first one is unconditional love. A person's inner energy stems from love. Why do you want to contribute to society, explore, solve problems, start a business, or get into politics? It's because you love society, you want to contribute. But when someone stops loving themselves, stops loving society, they lose the drive to create. So giving children unconditional love is crucial. What does unconditional love bring? Trust, respect, a sense of security. All of these come from unconditional love. But is this easy? It's the hardest part. Though every parent says they love their child the most, I rarely hear of parents who hate their kids. Of course, there are some, but not many. Most parents love their children, but establishing unconditional love, that's a skill. Why? Because we have to fight against 2 things. One is called exchange, the other threat. The other day, a friend of Dudu told me whenever his mom got mad, she'd hit him everywhere except the head, all over the body, even pushed him out the door, locked it, and told him she didn't want him. So, when you use violent methods, when you say, "I don't want you," and push them away, you'll see that child will cry hysterically. When that child throws a tantrum, they'll scream, go wild. Why? Their hormone levels rise, they're in a constant battle with their parents, their hormone levels are higher than usual. They're in a state of insecurity. When you don't hit them, they seem fine. But once there's a conflict, their true colors show. So, when parents resort to threats, children are learning from you. We say children are copies of their parents. So, before puberty, how you treat your child, how rough and easy you are with them, will determine how brutal their teenage years are. It's that simple, because they're learning from you. They're learning all the ways to handle problems. Oh, so the best way to handle problems is to push someone away, slam the door, run away from home. So, once they develop these abilities after puberty, they'll use all the problem-solving methods they've learned from you, and they'll apply them first to you. And using these methods of threat and exchange will make children develop a rebellious attitude towards things they should be learning and practicing. Why? Because many parents have a habit where no matter what their child wants, they say, if you rank up in the exam, if you read that English book, or if you do something for me, I will reward you. You're always communicating with your child through this exchange method, and eventually, the child won't feel any joy in learning anything. That's the allure of exchange and threat. Why do so many people like using this? And what I've observed more often is dads like to exchange, moms like to threaten, and it works. The core reason is the child's love for us far outweighs our love for them. Even if you beat your child, after 20 minutes, they'll be fine with you. Even come to you and say, Mom, I was wrong. See how nice they are to you? But if you try to patch things up with your son after beating him, good luck with that. So, a child can't leave the family. Therefore, when parents resort to threatening their child, the child behaves. Many parents say, if you get good grades this year, I'll take you on a trip. Then by the end of the year, when they see the grades, they say, with these grades, you think you deserve a trip? I'd be too embarrassed to go. The moment parents cancel the trip, the child immediately realizes, who do you really love? You don't love me at all. You love good grades. You love that high score. So, when we use these wrong methods of communication, we can't establish unconditional love with our children. When you can't establish unconditional love, well, your child's inner security is shattered. What's the result of lacking security? They'll spend their whole life chasing after it, or paying a hefty price to find it. Many parents don't understand. They say unconditional love means anything goes. I'll agree to anything. I won't care. Can that work? No, if anything goes, not caring, that's called neglect. And it will cause other damage to the child. You can listen to a book called The Neglected Child. The highest realm of parenting is being gentle yet having boundaries. If a child does something wrong, someone has to point it out, correct them, and this will give the child a sense of security. They'll know, my parents care about me, and if I do something wrong, they'll point it out. But you have to understand, unconditional love doesn't mean spoiling. Unconditional love can involve criticism. But you must note that before criticizing, you need to first express unconditional love. Because mom and dad love you, I need to tell you why you shouldn't do this. Because we care about you the most, I must firmly stop you from doing this. After explaining, you can be very stern, but once you're done, you must also tell them, look, even though dad criticized you today, mom and dad will always love you. You need to emphasize this repeatedly so that they understand that your feedback and criticism are truly for their benefit. In my interactions with my son at home, I've accumulated a lot of experience with this approach. I can clearly see that following the methods suggested in books is effective and requires little effort. So, for example, we often see many parents correcting their children's behavior in public places, like in a museum saying, "Don't touch that," and the child responds, "But I want to." Why? Why is it that the more you correct them, the less they listen? In reality, the child is constantly testing your limits. They think, maybe you don't love me anymore, maybe you don't like me, so I'll touch this again. I'll behave even worse, just to see your reaction. And finally, when they get scolded, they'll say, "See, you don't really love me." And then they'll reset. It's a process of constantly testing boundaries, then feeling disappointed, upset, getting a beating, and returning to normal. It becomes increasingly difficult because the child isn't sure if you really love them. They expend a lot of mental energy on this issue.